Okay, I'm going to get started if everybody's okay with that. Welcome to everyone. This is the third quarter board meeting for Redox OS. I call the meeting of the board of directors of Redox OS to order. When I state your name, please acknowledge your presence. Maybe just turn your video on briefly and say hello. So I'm Ronald Williams. Jeremy Solar.
Jeremy Solar here.
Okay, Alberto Souza.
Alberto Souza here.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm going to turn off my video for the purposes of making the recording go more smoothly, but we have a quorum. So first thing is the minutes from the last meeting. So the minutes for the previous board meeting were distributed to the board members. Board members, are there any corrections?
I have no
If
corrections.
If there's no corrections, we'll consider the minutes approved as distributed. In the previous board meeting, we took an action to ensure the articles of incorporation were filed in the corporate binder, but the nonprofit will be using electronic books and records as allowed under Colorado state law. So under Colorado business and corporation law, I guess. Since no corporate binder is required, we will just confirm that the articles of incorporation are filed with the state of Colorado. Alberto, do you confirm that the articles of incorporation are filed with the Colorado Secretary of State?
Yes.
Jeremy, can you confirm that the IRS has acknowledged receipt of our application for 501c4 status, and can we declare ourselves a 501c4 nonprofit corporation?
We have self-declared as 501c4, and the IRS has received our application. We are allowed to declare ourselves a 501c4 nonprofit.
Okay. So, Jeremy, can you please provide our current financial status?
Currently, we have a cash balance of $14,736.84. There was an initial contribution to the bank account of $10,000, which was called a loan at the last meeting. It has now been considered a donation. Redox has no debt.
Okay, I would like to propose a budget for the remainder of the calendar year. Currently, we have a monthly income from Patreon donations of approximately $600 a month. We are about to embark on selling t-shirts. We're hoping to get approximately $1,000 to $2,000 during the initial period of sales, probably the first 3 months or so, and then ongoing sales of about $200 a month. So that gives us total monthly revenue of approximately $800. And then monthly expenses, we're expecting the hosting of Redox OS website, the redoxos.org website, and GitLab, hosting expenses of around $100. And then we are budgeting $400 for community coordinator, community manager. And then $100 safety net for just miscellaneous expenses, bank charges, or whatever. So that's total expenses of approximately $600. And then given the monthly revenue of $800, that gives us a net income of approximately $200 per month. And then we'll have a what we'll call a one-time expense for the trademark registration estimated at approximately $4,000. Are there any concerns regarding the budget? So I would like to entertain a motion to authorize the treasurer to make expenditures according to the stated budget.
Move it.
Seconded.
It's moved and seconded that the treasurer is authorized to make expenditures according to the stated budget. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no.
Aye.
Aye.
Upon motion duly moved, seconded, and carried, it was resolved that the treasurer is authorized to make expenditures according to the stated budget. Jeremy, can you talk about the community manager role?
Sure. So it's our intent to employ Alberto as our community manager. He will continue doing the work he has been doing, helping people join GitLab and Matrix, answering questions, and coordinating with our other volunteers. We will be providing him with a monthly salary of $400, which we think is reasonable given the amount of time and commitment he is putting into Redox and the community. It is important to note that this employment is not connected to his duties as a member of the board, which are voluntary.
I'd like to entertain a motion that, subject to agreement on an employment contract, the board authorizes employing Alberto Souza in the position of community manager.
Moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that, subject to agreement on an employment contract, the board authorizes employing Alberto Souza in the position of community manager. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no.
Aye.
Aye. Upon motion duly moved, seconded, and carried, it was resolved that, subject to agreement on an employment contract, the board authorizes employing Alberto Souza in the position of community manager. Now, in the upcoming months, I'm going to be spending more of my time on fundraising. The first priority will be funds for the Summer of Code projects. There's a number of opportunities, including both direct and indirect funding, so donations, or for example, for the Google Summer of Code, Google pays interns directly to work on open source projects. So I'll be doing research looking for that type of funding for our Redox Summer of Code projects. We don't know how many Summer of Code projects we'll have this year until we make more progress on funding. We don't know how many projects we'll have next year until we make progress on funding. But we had 3 Redox Summer of Code projects this year. And then as a second priority, I'm going to start looking for corporate donors with the goal, hopefully, of being able to hire 1 or 2 people full-time, but that is farther in the future. And as I speak to potential corporate donors, I'll also be asking about in-kind contributions where they have their own developers who could contribute to Redox, the Redox code base, on a more of an ongoing basis. And in some cases, it's easier for companies to do that rather than to donate cash, because they don't have to worry about funds being misused, because it's really the employee's time that they're donating rather than cash. Next item on the agenda is t-shirts. We've finalized our plans with t-shirts. We'll be working with Teespring as our supplier because they give us the best balance between cost and simplicity. They're quite a large company. They also have lots of other products which we might want to provide if people are happy with the t-shirt experience. We're going to be using their premium t-shirts with just the the Redox logo on the front. There won't be any caption. The logo's been updated. We'll be discussing that in a moment. So we'll be using the new logo on the front. I'd like to entertain a motion to authorize the treasurer to set up our t-shirt sales.
Move it.
Seconded.
It's moved and seconded that the board authorize the treasurer to set up our t-shirt sales. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no.
Aye.
Aye.
Upon motion duly moved, seconded, and carried, it was resolved that the board authorizes the treasurer to set up our t-shirt sales. I'd like to ask Jeremy for a report on our plans to trademark the Redox OS name.
So there are two parts of this. We need to trademark Redox OS as a standard mark, and we also need to trademark our new logo. So we're going to, we're planning to register the name Redox OS and our logo as international trademarks. We are changing our logo to incorporate the Redox OS name. The new logo is in our assets repository. That's at gitlab.redox-os.org/redox-os/assets. It's in the folder logos/redox/vectorized-logo.svg. So I will be contacting trademark lawyers to get quotes for the application process. I think it's important to note that we will be starting with the standard mark because it provides the most protection. And after performing that process, we will go towards the specialized mark, which is our logo.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Because Jeremy is the originator of Redox OS, we plan to have an agreement with him where the nonprofit takes responsibility for the Redox OS name and trademark, and the nonprofit will officially recognize Jeremy as the BDFL. So this agreement will be something that we complete as we move forward with the trademark process. I'd like to entertain a motion that, subject to an agreement with Jeremy and subject to the previously agreed budget, the board authorizes the treasurer to apply for trademarks of the Redox OS name and the new logo on behalf of the nonprofit.
Moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that, subject to an agreement with Jeremy and subject to the previously agreed budget, the board authorizes the treasurer to apply for trademarks of the Redox OS name and the new logo on behalf of the nonprofit. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no.
Aye.
Aye.
Upon motion duly moved, seconded, and carried, subject to an agreement with Jeremy and subject to the previously agreed budget, the board authorizes the treasurer to apply for trademarks of the Redox OS name and the new logo on behalf of the nonprofit. I'd like to ask Jeremy to report on Redox OS development.
Sure. So over this last year, we've had a Summer of Code project involving 3 individuals, 4 LDO2, and Andy and Enigmatter. So their 3 projects were detailed on our website, and you can see news posts about that, including what I think is the best news post to reference, which I'll just say the title for those listening. We have the Redox Summer of Code 2023 wrap-up that the board actually wrote together. So that explains what we're using the funds that come into Redox for and that have come in over previous years. So we will be working on release 0.9 of Redox in the next month or 2. We have started to prioritize some of the work on Redox, which we hope will give people some idea of what we are emphasizing. But as always, we want people to enjoy what they're doing, so they can feel free to work on whatever suits them. A big priority is we need to have a stable ABI. This means that binaries are able to run on the operating system over a long period of time and don't have to be recompiled. And I've talked with 4LDO2 about this previously, and we have some items that need to be worked on prior to that. Most importantly is we want to move more of the things that are directly using system calls to using the C library, relibc. And if we can do that and we can make relibc a dynamic library, then we should be able to make changes at the system call level without destroying a stable ABI. Next is we want to develop a server version of Redox. And this is a higher priority than desktop because it's perceived to be a smaller scope. We have some work to do on optimizing drivers for that, especially network drivers. But the foundation is very much there. And porting common server programs is an important step to take. Things like Apache, Nginx, etc. We want to self-host the build system. This has been a very long-term goal that we've been working on over the entire course of Redox, and a very important one. We've been able to port GCC, bin utils, and other aspects of the build system to Redox, but the one remaining issue is that rustc itself doesn't work very well on Redox. So the work we have to do to fix that is pretty involved. It's at all places in the stack. We have to continue porting functions for relibc. We have to continue porting Rust crates that need to have support for Redox. We have to continue implementing more drivers and kernel support. And we have to implement a lot of POSIX process and job management system calls and C library functions. This is one area that has been particularly difficult, and 4LDO2 has been working really hard on it. So I hope we have some progress made within the next year. We need to work on porting developer tools to Redox. So that involves, well, identifying the tools that we want to port and ensuring that they're running properly. In my mind, we have a lot of the very basic things there, like we have the ability to compile C programs, we have Python and Lua and some other scripting languages that have been partially ported. But the big one for me is still rustc. And then after that, porting other popular languages, things like Elixir, things like Go, that may have their own runtime and are more difficult to port than C and C++. We also have a lot of work to do on C++ and C because we have missing aspects of relibc that need to be flushed out, things like wide string support. We would like to host the Redox website on Redox running in a virtual machine. So that's one where the Redox Summer of Code projects have been filling in some of the gaps we've had for virtual machines. Having drivers like the ones Andy worked on for VirtIO will enable much lower latency and higher performance virtual machines running Redox. And it gets us to the point where we might be able to run Redox on a cloud machine like EC2 or on DigitalOcean. Then there is a lot of work to be done on virtual machine support, device virtualization, Redox as a hypervisor. So yeah, those are things also related to getting cloud support working and hosting the Redox website on Redox. And also things that Andy was working on recently. We need to start giving more attention to performance and responsiveness, and making desktop and demo go faster is an important part of that. So a majority of how people will interact with the system is to download our ISO and try it out on real hardware. And that's just how it is for Linux distributions, and we should assume that that's a common thing that people will be trying to do with Redox. And right now we have some issues that are kind of stopping us in that direction. The support for virtual machines is far better, and real hardware has a lot of heterogeneous implementations of different things. For example, the high definition audio driver may work on one machine, but hang on another machine. And preventing hangs like that across the entire set of drivers that we have is a very important part to getting people to actually be able to see our demo image running on real hardware at native performance. And then there's optimization things. For LDO2 has been working on a number of those, like on-demand paging. And I like to port a lot of games and emulators and things like that because it's another way to see the performance. When you can make a game run properly at very high speeds and very low latencies, then you know the rest of the stack is basically good. And it becomes an easy benchmark to compare as you make changes. And the last note was Cosmic Desktop. And I've elaborated on these points a little more than I should. We'll probably list the development priorities in some news post later on. But the Cosmic Desktop is something being worked on at the company I work at, System 76. It's an open source Linux desktop environment that's written mostly in Rust, and that kind of aligns it with the goals of Redox. And there are some things we need to work on. I think first is to port the applications that are going into Cosmic, things like the text editor that I'm working on for Cosmic, port those to running on top of Orbital, which is our current window manager for Redox. And then the second stage will be to port Wayland itself. So to port the Cosmic compositor and then gain all of the applications on Cosmic and the other elements of the shell by having an actual Wayland compositor. That will also enable us to immediately port GTK and Qt and a whole bunch of other apps, Electron, just a large list of applications that run on Linux will be able to be ported to any other Wayland environment. So that concludes the very long elaboration that I gave on all of those points. Are there any questions? Well, I guess Ron has agenda items for the next board meeting.
Oh, okay. Am I back now? Okay, great. Thanks very, very much, Jeremy. That was an awesome summary. And it really sounds exciting. Sounds like a lot is going to start falling into place quickly as we knock down some of the hard parts that we're facing right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the following items are proposed for the next board meeting. So we'll be reviewing the minutes from this meeting. We will be doing a report on what we've uncovered on fundraising and take a look at the t-shirt sales. And then we'll do a report on the trademark registration. And then we'll talk about the upcoming election of the board of directors. So the current director's current term finishes in January, and we'll be electing a new board. So we'll talk a little bit about what we see going forward for the board and what we hope for from volunteers. Is there any other business for the board to consider at this time?
I don't have anything. Alberto, do you have anything?
No.
Okay, I move to adjourn.
Seconded.
It's moved and seconded that we adjourn. Those in favor say aye, and those opposed say no.
Aye.
Aye.
This meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.